Hey yo, welcome to Beyond the Mat, where it's all about the things and stuff. It's like this and like that, sitting in a lotus seat. We breathe deep from our heads to our feet till we feel inner heat. A little bit of rhythm for your soul, stretching out your minds from your head to your toes. We in our flow state, we don't know no hate. We into feeling great though, so we correlate. Coil snake gonna rise, sunshine. We take our time to appreciate divine grace. It takes place in a pace in them interstates. From a country road down to the interstate, we contemplate this. We here to make this. We here to break this. But we never fake this. We never hate kids. We in the love vibe. Me and my whole tribe, we gonna try to be fly with the sunshine. Makalaka chaka chaka choo. Hello, all my Beyonders out there in the world. We have another epic episode, but first, let's get down to business. The show is brought to you by the colors green, purple, yellow, and orange. And, of course, my 2018 art collection that can be found by simply visiting jcoleyoga.ca, scrolling to the bottom of the page and clicking on the link. Why would you even do that? Well, maybe you're just as crazy as I am and you like trippy looking artwork that makes you think deep thoughts and have your mind explode into a multi-dimensional spasm. Or maybe you just want to help sponsor the show with your purchase. So, that said, sponsoring the show. You can also head over to patreon.com/beyondthemat, and then by donating any amount for each dollar, you also get entered into a raffle for a piece of art of your choosing, mailed to you at no cost, zero, zilch, nada. So you can donate anywhere from $1 to $10, I think that's how it's set up, and that gives you entries into the raffle draw. Once the pot has reached a certain amount, the draw will happen, and someone will win. That's right, win for free. And you'll be able to enjoy the art in your own home, on your own wall, and other friends will come visit and they'll say, wow, that art, man, is giving me mind spasms in a 5D reality. Where did you get it? And then you'll explain how it was won on a podcast, because this is the podcast that likes to give a little something back to the fans for their support, and what better way than with a raffle draw. That's it. No more business. Today's guest is part of this little flow state series I'm doing. EKATERINA Aleksenko is a lady from Russia living in San Francisco, USA. I found this lady through the Flow Genome Project when I reached out looking for some flow state guests. So she is a licensed skydiver with over 300 jumps, a yoga instructor. She has been ice skating, dancing, drawing. She's done circus aerial arts like tightwire and trampoline. We even spiral outward and get into some chats about hitchhiking and making jewelry. All of this ties in, of course, and relates back to flow states. So, here we go. A nice, loud round of noise, hand claps, applause, screams and shouts. Put some rocks in a can and shake it, I don't care, for this lovely lady, EKATERINA Aleksenko. So, welcome, EKATERINA, to the show, Beyond the Mat, where we talk about all the things that happen off of the yoga mat, and sometimes on the yoga mat. But not too often. We don't want to get like pigeonholed into just one thing. So that's why I like Beyond the Mat, because it's kind of like everything else, you know?
I love it. The life happens off the mat, mostly. So, yeah.
Mostly. Yeah. So, this is a part of a little series of recordings I've done this week on flow states, because I had reached out to the Flow Genome Project explaining about my podcast, and then a bunch of people responded and were like, yeah, I'd love to do this. So that's how I met you. And yeah, I'm just kind of looking at my notes here. So you said you're a yogi. Are you a yoga instructor, or you're like a yoga doer?
I am a certified yoga teacher.
Woo!
But obviously I'm also exploring other options for practicing yoga. So it's not just about, what you think when you usually think about yoga, but also different kinds of yoga. And that's how I started learning about it. Started with Raja Yoga. So I'm a practitioner and a teacher and a learner.
with Raja Yoga. Maybe explain what that is to everybody.
Raja Yoga is not physical type of yoga. It's a different sort of different goal of it, and we study yoga as a way to work on ourselves rather than our bodies.
Okay.
And it's not something that you can just go to a studio and learn, right? It's something you do, you experience. It's obviously practiced in different ways. I first learned about it in Russia, which is where I'm originally from, and it was very different. It was very different, and it really opened my eyes on different ways of being, doing, thinking, experiencing things.
Right. So, yeah, like when you look at the definition of yoga, it means like to yoke, which is like basically like to unite, isn't it? I'm pretty sure. I hope I'm not messing that up because I'm also a certified yoga teacher. I better not mess that up. To yoke, meaning...
Yeah. Yes, usually that's what they say, right? Union of the mind and body, or soul and mind. There's
Right.
different definitions, and nobody really knows exactly what it is, I guess, because there's so many different definitions. People think about it the way they want to think about it, and there's no right or wrong necessarily.
Right.
Plus, there's different cultures, how they practice yoga in their culture context.
Right.
So it's kind of a combination of all those things.
That's kind of like what we do, though, like as humans. We like to complicate things because, like, even when you look at yoga, going all the way back, it pretty much started with, like, what, 3 or 4 poses? And then it just developed from that. And they did the poses before or after these lengthy, like, 14-hour meditations. And it's funny because now it's completely flipped. Now the whole class is doing poses with a tiny little meditation.
That's right. And it's just so funny to me that's how it is now, and it's not necessarily a wrong way, right? It works for many people.
Right.
But it's interesting to see that change, how it progresses, and how it changes itself too, and how people who practice it change it.
Right.
So I think it's different. Yeah, it's our job is sort of to explore different options and then try to figure out what can we learn about yoga as in, the abstract sense. What can we learn something new, something that we never thought about it before about it,
Right. Yeah. I mean, it feels like it's almost like its own entity, and it is adapting so that it doesn't like fade away. It's adapting to us and how we are changing, and yoga adapts with us so that it doesn't, fade away. And it totally has changed. And I know we are the ones that change it, but it's kind of like a global consciousness kind of thing on a whole, where we're all, we're changing and we're growing, and then it also changes and grows with us. But I like to look at it as it's its own kind of entity that's there to help us along. And so maybe it is the right way that it's changed this way. And who knows, maybe in like 100 years, it'll change back and everybody will be meditating for 14 hours and doing 3 or 4 asanas at the end or beginning.
I think it's a good point that you're making. You're saying that it changed, and it has to change to stay with us. Otherwise, it might be lost, forgotten. So even though many people these days, right, they're saying, oh, it used to be better, it used to be this way, now it's this way. But in a way, it changed. Well, first of all, change is the only constant, right? and it has to change, at least to stay with us, so we can keep evolving with it, and we can keep evolving it.
Right. Yeah, I think it's one of those things that's like, it's never really going to go away. It's not something that's just going to crash and burn out, and the fad might be over, because I know it's like, it's on this huge upswing right now, and especially over the last few years, I've noticed that it's really, it kind of like peaked and then it plateaus, and then it peaks again and then it plateaus. But it doesn't seem to crash down at any point. There's just more and more people trying it out and enjoying the benefits from it.
Yes, and I think that it's for a reason. There's something there, right, that appeals to people and that ultimately helps them with different issues, perhaps, but there's something that's helpful. So that's why it's still here. It's still evolving.
I mean, I started because I started feeling arthritis in my body, and arthritis runs in my family. And so, I don't know, probably like 10 years ago, before my grandfather had passed away, I asked him, I said, hey, what are the things in our family that I should look out for, like health-wise? And he said, like, arthritis is probably the worst one. And I was like, all right. So immediately I jumped online and I was like, how to prevent arthritis. Chicka, 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 chicka. And the one thing that came up was that yoga, it won't prevent your arthritis from happening, but it'll stop it from getting any worse. So that very first day, and this is when I was living in Los Angeles actually, that very first day that I felt those arthritis pains for the first time in my life, I was like, oh, this is it. Time to start the yoga. I had put it off for probably 10 years. And I kind of feel like, man, maybe I should have got into this earlier, but here we are.
It's okay. It's better late than never.
Yeah, exactly. It's been like 3 years now, I think. 2.5 to 3 years that I've been doing it. So yeah, what's 2015, 16, 17, 4 years. Okay. It's been longer than I thought. So getting back to flow states, which is such an exciting topic, because being in that flow zone is just like the most amazing thing. And I mean, I'm definitely not a flow junkie. Like, I'm not chasing that high all the time. I know it happens when it happens, and if it doesn't, it doesn't. And I'm totally fine with that. But I mean, to be able to like look into ways to trigger the flow state without having to do a 90-minute yoga class to get into that zone is really what I'm interested in. Like, is there like a pill I can take?
Not that I know of. That would be great in some situations. and I think, when we see that something is beneficial to us, for example, flow states, and then we think, okay, well, how can I have more of that in my life? And ideally, what pill can I take so I don't have to do other things, right? So we want that trigger that gets us into that state. But by doing that, we sometimes forget that other things go along with it that usually bring us into flow states naturally.
Yeah.
And we don't necessarily want to skip all those things necessarily.
Right. So I joined into the Flow Genome Project. I had learned about it through this guy on YouTube, Jason Silva. He makes these really cool videos called Shots of Awe, and he's the one who put me onto that. And then they had some kind of free 5-day course that they did just to like get people introduced into the whole system that they're doing. And it was really cool because they help you like lay out how to start your day, which I've already kind of been doing, but maybe not on such a strict routine. And it's funny because once I started doing this, I noticed like my friends were like, man, you're being too strict. It's too many rules. It's too much order in your life. You got to like just be free and just go with it and do it when you feel like you have to. And being a self-employed person, my job is chaos. I am all over the place every day. No 2 days are the same. And so that is the chaos, and that is the disorder. So I like my mornings, my home time to be totally set and ready to go. And my evenings as well. Everything is like set in an order because the day is just so chaotic. So they were saying to like start with, so your sleep, for instance, sleeping in a cold, like a cold, dark room with no light, quiet, no screens, no cell phone screens, no TV screens for at least an hour before you go to bed. Drink a pint of water as soon as you wake up because apparently you sweat out a lot of water at night. Do your moves right away. So do some yoga or do this like 300 thing that they do. Do your MIT, which is your most important tasks, your 3 most important tasks. So I have a huge list that just goes on. It's probably a 10-year list. And it says to just pick the most 3 important for the day and just kind of like tackle those. There's a daily gratitude involved. So I have a timer on my cell phone set for 3:14 every day. A timer goes off and it says do your gratitude. So I just stop whatever I'm doing and I open up a little notepad and I write down 3 to 5 things that I'm grateful for. And then later at night, it says to write down tomorrow's MIT's most important tasks. And just by doing that alone, it really brought a lot more order into my mornings on top of the order I already had, because I was getting up at 4 a.m. every day, doing an hour of meditation and then doing an hour of yoga. And now it's 6 o'clock in the morning and now it's time to, get ready for the day. So that has been really, really helpful and really interesting. The way that you can set up your life for greatness, basically.
Yes, and I love that Flow Genome Project, what they're doing, their mission, and how they distilling some knowledge and anecdotes, evidence, and how they give you this framework. Do this, do that, and it's some of it is coming from research and peer-reviewed articles. Some of it maybe not as scientific, but still very helpful to people. And that's where I think it's very important to bring all information together and see what actually is helpful to most people. And that's why maybe it sounds, common sense, drink water in the morning, exercise, who didn't know that, right? But it's a way of, again, like you said, structuring your life that can bring you a lot of positive emotions. And that can, as Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi, who originally wrote Flow, the Psychology of Optimal Experience book, he said that happiness as a state comes from that, ordering your consciousness. So being in control what is in your consciousness. And by ordering it, for example, like you said, having a structure, certain things you do, you take care of your body, you're drinking water, you're eating nutritious foods, you're working out, and in your mind as well, you're doing some things like, again, gratitude, right? Or writing down the most important tasks you're going to accomplish. You kind of starting the processes in your mind, planning, so that you know that it's kind of there, right? Like a computer, you have a program running, you wrote down your most important tasks for the day, and when you wake up, the program is still running in the background, so it'll be easier for you to get started on those tasks. And by doing all of these things together as a system, they make flow states more likely to happen. They don't guarantee it.
No.
But all of those things that you mentioned, it looks like most of them are necessary for most people to enter flow states. Because if we're tired, if we overworked, we're hungry, we're stressed out, it makes it so much harder to get into flow state, because we're constantly thinking, what can we do better? How can we relax? How can we make more money, bills, cars, traffic, all of this, keeping us in the present moment, but not in the way of flow state, but in the way of trying to troubleshoot. And so anxiety, right, kind of comes with it as well. And sometimes when it's too much anxiety, then you definitely can't really enter flow state and be in the moment, but without this little inner critic, without yourself that is scanning everything around you and trying to make plans and thinking, and what am I going to have for dinner, and what should I say to my boyfriend, right? All these things. And again, so by ordering our consciousness and our life in general, it makes it so much easier to achieve the positive experiences.
Right. And like you said, it's not about doing all of these things that the Genome Project has set out to do. Like you said, that itself doesn't create the flow state. That just sets you up to be more apt to have one. And I just want to go back real quick. What was the name of the author of the flow book that you mentioned?
His name is very hard to pronounce because it's long, and it's Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi. If you just Google Flow, the Psychology of Optimal Experience, it should bring it up. It has great ratings. Many people read it. It triggered many people to keep exploring the flow states. And Mihaly, he's a researcher, right, I believe at the University of Chicago in the moment. And so this information comes from the peer-reviewed articles, which is great, I think, to have as a base something that's been researched, right, using scientific methods, using many, many people, trying to find the core principles, what makes people more likely to have flow experiences.
Right. So with yourself, I mean, I know you've already told me a few of the your flow things that you've done. What are the things that you get your flow from? I mean, aside from yoga, of course. So
there's been so many things, honestly, and it's great that there's still more to explore. And I'm the kind of person who it's very hard for me to have that structure and to stay on one task for a long time. But I love playing, so I keep exploring different activities. So I engage in many, many things. For example, it starts from things like ice skating and dancing and other physical activities, but also it could be drawing and maybe even organizing things can get me into flow state. And then, of course, extreme activities. I'm a licensed skydiver with more than 300 jumps.
What?
Those things definitely help.
Skydiving? Oh my God. I've always wanted to go skydiving. It's just never come up except for this one time. And so I'm in Victoria in British Columbia, Vancouver Island. But I'm from Halifax, Nova Scotia, the whole other end of the country. And this one time I met a guy who flies a cargo plane over to Europe, and he brings skydivers with him. And you're allowed, and it's free. It's totally free. I mean, you need your gear and everything, but to get on the plane, he'll bring anybody and he'll fly you out, and you have to jump. And if you don't jump, then you're paying for the plane ticket to Europe with him. And it was some kind of cargo plane thing that they were doing. And I was like, this is it. This is my chance. And then I just kind of chickened out because of the cost involved with, flying over to Europe and back again. I know, I'm like, if I chicken out, like, I'm going to have this huge bill on my desk, and I don't want that. So just because of that, the cost of that kind of put me off. But yeah, other than that, there hasn't been an opportunity. So you got to tell me, like, what it's like. It's got to be so exhilarating.
It is many things. And when most people think about it, when they hear that I jump out of airplanes for fun, and they start kind of imagining how scary it must be, how cool it must be, and all those things. And while it's true, it is scary and fun, there are also many other emotions that come up, especially if you start doing it regularly, not just once or twice as a tandem, but when you start practicing it, right? More training. We usually say, oh, it's a sport, skydiving as a sport. And there's a lot of disciplines within it, there are competitions, and it can get very sport-like. But also it can be art-like. And this is what I like to do. I like to jump out of airplanes for fun and use my body as a way, as a sail, as a wing. I like to move around in 3 dimensions. And it's hard to explain what it feels like, but at first, when you don't really know how it works, if you don't have body awareness, if you don't know how air works and how planes fly, at first you're just tumbling around and adrenaline pumping and everything, and you're looking around and you're realizing that, oh my God, this is our planet. I'm not on it right now. I am in space. And I'm rushing down towards my planet. But you can't quite feel it, because when you're in free fall, it doesn't really feel like you're falling when you reach the terminal velocity, that is. You do feel a lot of pressure from the wind because you're falling so fast. Right? And it's sort of like when you're in a pool, you're swimming, you can feel the water around you. So similarly, you feel the air around you. We call it the relative wind.
Right.
And obviously it's noisy. You cannot talk to each other. And you wear a suit and helmet and parachute and other equipment to help you survive. But it can really be, I found it's a spectrum. It can be from really, really scary to anxious to, I've done it before, nothing special, uneventful jump. That's how they often start the incident reports, that after uneventful jump, something happened. But it can also be a very peaceful experience. It can be very Zen-like. It can be, something, samadhi, shavasana. Different words can be used to explain that. And that's not even it, right? It could be really exhilarating. It can be, oh my God, this is the best time of my life. At the time can slow down or it can speed up. All these things happening. And so where you end up on that spectrum depends who you are, what experiences you've had so far, right? Kind of setting as well. So how am I feeling today? What has been going on in my life? And also, right, perhaps the situation, where are you doing it? Who are you doing it with? Do you have support? Do you feel like it's a safe drop zone where you're jumping from? So really people can experience all kinds of things when they skydive.
Wow. So I have a couple questions. What is the general altitude that people jump from, like on average, just a regular basic altitude jump? And then how long does it take before you come down to the ground? Like how many seconds or minutes do you have before you have to pull your chute?
It doesn't take long because we usually exit at around 12,000 feet. So it's about 4 kilometers. And right, you reach terminal velocity in a few seconds. And after that, you have about a minute in free fall, depending on what you do, because as you move around, it changes your terminal velocity, so you might have more time or less time, again, depending on what you're doing in your equipment. So you have a minute in free fall, and after that, you have up to 5 minutes under the canopy, piloting down and landing. So the whole thing does not take a long time. What actually takes a long time is packing your parachute and getting in the plane and getting the ride to the altitude. So perhaps I could say that one jump takes an hour, right? You have to maybe pack your parachute, go wait, then you sit down on the plane, 20 minutes of the altitude, and again, sort of the skydiving, most people that they think about is only 1 minute out of the whole hour.
Yeah, so, geez, for me, it would be my adrenaline and heart would be pumping the most on the ground before I even get on the plane. And then on the plane, as it went up, it would just be exceeded. And I feel like once I would be out of the plane, all that would go away. And I would just be in that bliss moment, because I'm equating this to a roller coaster, which I hated roller coasters my whole life. And then I finally found a way to overcome them by just kind of like letting go. But I would still, as you're in that little roller coaster cart and it's going click, 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 click up the track, and you're almost going up to this 90-degree drop, that right there is when my adrenaline would just go crazy and my heart would beat out of my chest. But then as soon as you went over that mound, that crest, and it dropped, whew, there's no feeling at all. It's like, woo, this is the fun part. Like, yeah, this is why I'm here. And then click, click, click goes back up again. And you're like, uh-oh, okay, what's next after that one? Because I know they start you off small and it only gets crazier as the roller coaster goes. So I can only imagine flying to be somewhat like that, only scaled up a great amount.
And I find that roller coasters can be too extreme almost and too much. I love some, but others, when you get that kind of feeling in your stomach, right, like you said, those big drops and then something else is coming, I don't actually enjoy those, although it's a funny thing, but skydiving has helped me to enjoy roller coasters more.
Right.
and it's it's also different skydiving because it's not a solitary activity. You can do it with people, and while you are on a roller coaster with other people in a car perhaps, but you're not doing anything with them. It's not relational. Now when you're in the sky, there's so many things you can do when you're doing things together. You're building shapes, you're working on your skills, perhaps you're flying in a wingsuit. And then it becomes much more than just, oh, look at this ride, but it's also, okay, I have to be in contact with other people. And that's where the group flow can also appear.
Yeah, so yeah, I see your picture is actually coming up on my screen here. And I just had a question. Who is taking the picture? Did you bring a selfie stick and a camera with you?
No, I did not. I'm not on that jump, because when you bring a selfie stick or anything, it changes dynamics and it changes how you move, and it's not really fun with a selfie stick. So usually we have somebody else who jumps with us, and that's why again the relational part comes in. So they have to stay close enough, which is really hard for some disciplines. So there's in free fall, we're falling towards the earth. and they have to be within 2 to 10 feet, let's say, from me. So they're there with a camera on their head, and it's filming, and or taking pictures, and they stay around. Yeah.
Huh. Amazing. So yeah, so then you're with, I mean, I've only seen it in movies and on television when there's like 5 or 6 people and they're holding hands and then they spread out and they go away and they come back together and they rejoin. So you're doing that kind of, those kind of things.
Yep, that's called relational work. That's when you jump out with a group of people and you have a goal in mind. Or not. When you do have a goal in mind, that's sort of the sport that we talk about. And you know what you're supposed to do, what shape, what your position needs to be, who you need to grab. You can hold hands. There are also grips on your suit, so sometimes on your legs, sometimes on your shoulders. And you try to arrange those figures together, all while falling down, rushing towards our planet.
Wow. That's mind-blowing. I'm definitely going to do it before my time on Earth is done. And yeah, it has to happen. So I don't know. I don't really have any more questions about the jumping. If you had anything else to add, I'd like to talk about the circus, because for the longest time, the circus was something that people ran away to when they had no other options left in life, kind of thing, like, oh, well, might as well run away and join the circus. That right there is like a saying that I've heard my whole life. Might as well run away and join the circus. Just give up on life. I'm going to go join the circus. And these days, though, like, the circus isn't something that you're giving up on life. In fact, it's just gotten so much more extreme. So what is your circus life all about? I guess circus arts.
My involvement, circus arts, right? My involvement in circus arts started because I wanted to be better at skydiving. I know, it's crazy. Okay. But I actually was not very good. I was not natural in, doing things in the sky. I did not have that body awareness, a proprioception, knowing where your body parts are in space. Usually it's not something we think about, although as people start getting into yoga more, sometimes they're like, oh, wait, my shoulder's not here. Oh, wait, I'm arching. Oh, right, forward fold. My back isn't this way, and it should be the other way. So it's kind of, again, knowing where you're in space and also knowing where you should be in space and adjusting.
Okay.
And I came to circus because well, first of all, it looks very fun, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
It definitely
and
looks
also,
fun.
again, it's perfect for achieving those flow states, and it's perfect for working out in a fun way, and it's perfect for, again, learning about your body and letting your body learn about you and space.
Wow.
And I just started taking classes because I'm like, hey, I'm not strong. In fact, I was quite weak. And it appealed to me because it's just like, wow, I wonder if I can, if only I could just try. Let me try. And these days there are classes everywhere, right? If you just Google discipline within the circus that you want to try, from juggling to flying trapeze, then you can just start doing it and take classes once a week or twice a week and kind of start experiencing flow states and fun this way.
Wow. Would you say that the circus arts itself is strength building, or is the strength building done elsewhere and then the circus arts just kind of helps put it in line?
In general, circus is great for building strength because you're doing it in a natural way for circus, and you have a goal in mind. For example, if you want to, again, whatever appeals to you, but let's say you want to do some tricks on the trapeze, and as you start trying the tricks, you realize, oh, I don't have this, or I don't have that, and then, okay, how can I build this? And you build the strength by actually doing the exercises, the tricks that you're trying to learn. You just do them, and of course, it's better to supplement with floor work, right? It can be push-ups, pull-ups, and all of those things are great. But also, by engaging in activities in circus, we're training our whole body and mind. And this way, strength comes. And it's fun, so more likely to go and do it again, right? So more likely to actually achieve our goals and become stronger, and also be able to do those things that usually you see people doing like, wow, okay, you know what, I'm not coordinated. No, I cannot do that.
Cool. What are the things that you do in circus arts? Like, what are the different activities, I guess?
First, I started with hula hooping, which is not necessarily circus arts, but it's kind of, I guess, a gateway. And it's something that I still do. It's still evolving, surprisingly. It's now different materials, different ways of doing it, different tricks. But also, when I was a kid, and my dad would bring me to a circus in Moscow, and it's a great place. I mean, they've been there for 100 years. They have a permanent building, and it's an amazing place. They have shows almost every day of the week. And you see them do all those things, and acrobats, and people flying on the trapeze, and tightwire walkers, and you just, wow, and you sit, right, and that kind of, that feeling of awe that comes with it.
Yeah.
It really stayed in my memory. Yeah, and it's, again, that this feeling of awe in general, even now, is something that helps me transcend stress, the life, the bills, and everything, right? It's something that brings me closer to who I am, perhaps, who we all are, in a way, part of us that, again, it kind of takes us away from the realities we usually experience and bring us somewhere, in the present moment. And then from of course, thinking like, oh wow, I remember those people flying there, I don't know what it felt like hundreds of feet away back then, but now I know it's lower to the ground, but still. So I decided, you know what, I'm gonna go and try flying trapeze. Why not? Again, life is short, and hey, if I can have fun, and maybe it can help me train to be a better skydiver, and it can allow me to move after sitting all day at work, why not? So I started doing that. And then I realized, well, you know what? I'm actually not great of a flyer. I need to learn more. And then I started doing trampoline. I started training myself on an Olympic-sized trampoline. Not those small ones, but the one that has, that's bigger and has the bounce that can give you more energy to perform tricks or just have fun.
Right. I remember when I was a kid going on trampolines. Like, it was always a lot of fun. And doing flips in the air, being up so high, bouncing, and then you fall and get your leg caught in one of those springs on the side. Yeah. So it seems like you have your... So, for example, like yoga is like the only... Let's call it a sport. It's the only sport that I do aside from downhill skiing. So like, which doesn't happen all year long. So yoga is really the only thing that I do that's really like that active. And you have so many different things that you do. Do you think that by having a variety of these things that it's helping you get in and out of flow states more often?
Absolutely. And especially because sometimes it's hard to get to a place where you can take that flying trapeze class, but perhaps it may be easier these days to find silks, aerial silks, where you can see, right, people sometimes attach them to the trees in the park, or in some venues, right, if you have a load-bearing a hooked place to attach your silks to, so you can start doing that. And even these days, here in gyms, you can take aerial hammock classes, which are great. Again, kind of, gets you moving. You can invert. You can have fun, and again, it's a workout. And so by trying out different things, at least it helps me to move my body, which is a problem for all of us these days, right? We sit a lot and we don't move enough. And part of the problem, because I think that's just, it's boring going to the gym. We have all those negative thinking and emotions associated with it. And for me personally, it's very hard to get myself to the gym unless something fun's going on. So
Right.
For me, doing something like circus art is fun, so I'm more likely to do it in the future. And circus arts can provide perfect place, an opportunity to enter the flow states, experience them while getting a workout. Why not, right? But I'm curious. I'm curious. You said that you tried trampoline a little bit, and it was fun. But what prevents you from doing it now?
As I got older, I seemed to get hurt easier. And I remember even being so there was me and my brother and 3 cousins, and we all lived together. And all my brother and cousins, they're 3 to 5 years younger than me. And I just remembered playing in the backyard, and we found like an old, looks like a chair when you go to a psychiatrist, one of those kind of chairs like that. And we were doing flips off of the roof and landing on this chair. And we were all doing it. And I did a flip off and I landed on this chair, and then, and I hurt my back. And I was like, oh. And that was the moment that I noticed. I was like, okay, so I'm older than everybody by like 3 to 5 years, and I'm getting hurt now. And I was like, I kind of don't want to do flips off the roof anymore. And I kind of don't. And it just seemed like my younger cousins and siblings were always able to just keep doing crazy stuff, and they weren't getting hurt. They were still that young age where they were bouncing back. And I mean, even though I was only like 10 or 12 years old, I was getting hurt. And I kind of like started to stray away from doing physical things like that, because every time I did it, I would get hurt. And I was like, I kind of don't want to get hurt anymore. So that's basically what steered me away from, doing things like that. I like to do safe things on the ground, I guess. But the skydiving is definitely still on the list.
Yeah, and I think you should definitely try it, especially because you wanted to try it and you had the opportunity. And it's actually one of the safer sports. Not many people realize that statistically you're more likely to get hurt while driving through the drop zone than while actually doing the tandem jump. I know, statistics.
So a tandem is when you're strapped with somebody else, is that right?
Exactly. That's how most people do their first jumps these days. So you don't have to really learn much. They give you a brief briefing, and they strap you and together, right, in the plane, and then you don't have to think about your canopy or anything. You can ask and kind of play around with it while you're under the canopy. But other than that, even landing, most of the impact the instructor takes on his or her feet.
When you land, I guess that's another question about the skydiving. When you land, like I've seen parachuters parachuting down, and from the ground, and when I look up at them, they look like they're just kind of floating really slowly, and they're just kind of cruising around. But then when you see them start to land, like they're coming down fast, and you got to kind of like be ready, and your feet hit the ground, and you got to kind of run a little bit. So how turbulent, how crazy of a landing is it usually?
That's a good question. And usually the landing is really easy and not much of impact at all. When I did a jump with a military round parachute back in Russia, because you cannot do it anywhere in America, I think, unless you already have some connections. But what we did, we practiced jumping from a table that was about a meter, so about 3 feet tall, right? So that's the impact that they say about. So it's not that bad. However, it depends. Really, it depends. Depends what the wind is doing, right? Are we putting ourselves in unsafe conditions when it's really windy and when direction of wind is not desirable, for example, right? Or like what kind of canopy do we have? Do we have enough square footage to slow us down enough? And are we using it the right way? Because you changing the shape of your canopy, and it helps you slow you down, and you need to do it in a precise moment. Okay. And if you do that, which usually when you go and watch people do that's what they do, and that's why they slow themselves down from, it could be very, very fast, from speeds, let's say, just for the sake of giving you a number, from 30 miles per hour, they can slow themselves to 0 miles per hour.
Wow. And
then they should just step on the ground, right? So sometimes you have to run it off a little bit. Sometimes you do have maybe 5 miles per hour, right? So it depends on the wind. So, but even 5 miles per hour is not that bad. So really, you just kind of step on the ground and you continue running as your speed decreases. So it's really possible for many people to do that.
Oh, wow. See, I didn't know that you did that. I didn't know that you changed the shape of the canopy to adjust. I thought it was just out and that was it. And you just kind of float down. So yeah, that's super interesting to learn that. You had mentioned in your text to me about hitchhiking. So I'm wondering if that was meant to be in with the flow state stuff, because I'm 39 years old. I'm definitely from the era of hitchhikers back in the day when it was totally a safe thing to do and everybody did it, and it was a really good way to get around and meet new people and explore. And I was in a band before, so I would always travel with CDs, and I would just give my drive one of my albums like as a payment, and they always appreciated it. And even though it was hip hop and rap music, I remember like some like more hillbilly kind of people who were like, I don't like that stuff, I like country music. And I was like, look man, just hang on to it, maybe you'll have a nephew or a neighbor or someone who wants it, and just give it to somebody else. So they really appreciated like having something like that. But yeah, coming from that era of hitchhiking when it was an okay thing to do, and nowadays it's so highly frowned upon. In fact, it's even illegal in some spots in Canada. So you're not allowed to hitchhike on any highways. You're kind of allowed to hitchhike on side roads, like side country roads. And I had a friend traveling from the East Coast all the way out here to the West Coast. And when he got to the border between Quebec and Ontario, they were on the highway, and someone had phoned it in and told the police that there's hitchhikers, there's dirty old hitchhikers on the road. So the police came and they're like, what are you guys doing? And my buddy and his friend were like, what, we're hitchhiking? And he goes, it's illegal on the highway. He goes, you have to go off the side road on the side. And he goes, just get in the car. So he puts my buddies in the car with all their bags, and he drives them about a half hour to the border of Quebec and kicks them out and goes, there, you're Ontario's problem now. Ontario being the next province.
Wow.
So they got this lift anyways, and then they just continued hitching the rest of the way out west. And yeah, so that's kind of what happens with us here, trying to hitch around.
Yeah, it really depends where you do that and what people in that area think about it. But anywhere you do, you'd be surprised that there are good people out there. They're out there, and it's amazing that, usually we think, oh, the world is full of bad people and they only want is your money and they want to rape you and they want this, right? Kind of this thinking that's perpetuated by the media, of course. But there's also, again, so many people that perhaps are doing the jobs, perhaps they're going somewhere else, and they would like somebody to sit in the car, and even just as a simple thing, just to help them stay awake. They would like to talk to somebody for safety reasons,
right,
or for entertainment reasons, because especially those people, right, who drive for work a lot, those big giant freight trucks, they love companionship. They love when it can talk to people, because it can get boring. And this way, it's like traveling for them, because different people bring different experiences with them, and they have a chance to interact.
Right.
And it's a win-win experience. Yeah.
So they're kind of like having their own little mini podcasts as they pick up different guests, and they could have little conversations, and then their guest leaves, and then they can pick up another guest along the way. Just as like a funny way of looking at it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I totally, this is my way of life, is that I give my trust. I give my trust for free, and I give it all openly right away. And then it's up to people to ruin it. It's up to people to mess that up. So, I mean, a lot of people, the way of thinking, especially coming from like the East Coast of Canada, a lot of people are like, don't trust anyone. You got to earn my trust. It's something you have to work hard for. And I don't know, I've always, I got to say, like, how is that really working out for you? Because if you are an untrusting person, if you don't trust anyone, in general, people don't trust you. You become untrustworthy yourself, because you're always like, oh, I don't trust them. Oh, I don't like that. I don't know. And people see that, and they kind of react accordingly, as if you're also an untrustworthy person. So I just decided one day, like, give all my trust open to everyone. And so far, it's worked out pretty good, I gotta say.
I love this experiment that you're doing. Yeah, that's exactly it. I think, of course, you have to be prudent, right? You know, if you feel unsafe, then take precautions. But if you're one of those people who, oh, no, don't give trust to anybody, Well, it prevents you from having the positive experiences that do come when you trust somebody a little, right? When you try something and you find out, oh my gosh, there's so many people out there who are willing to help me for free. And, it's been so many times that we were hitchhiking and we needed to get kind of from A to B, perhaps a 1,000-mile journey. But, we just go as long as we can with the driver. And they're saying, you're probably tired, you're hungry. I live here. We have a room, house. There's a grandma, grandpa. We'll have a family dinner. You can stay there. You can go to a lake and swim. We'll show you around. And you just see that and you're like, whoa, like what? You don't have to do this. Why are you doing this?
Right.
And the more experiences you have like that, you start realizing again that the people are generally good, right? This kind of the basic psychological view that people are good. And of course there's the bad apples here and there, right? But it's really amazing to feel that, because those people have to trust you too, to pick you when they're picking you up, right? They have to trust, because they, if they're afraid, they're not going to pick you up. So it's both ways. Yeah.
I mean, I always try and pick up as many hitchhikers as I can, because I also want to get picked up. Oh, can I get you to hold for just a quick second?
Absolutely.
All right, thank you. So, I've always tried to pick up as many hitchhikers as possible. But like you said, so you have to be trusting on that side. And then there's like a visual kind of thing going on too. So like when I see hippie looking people with dreadlocks and maybe they've been through some festivals or something, I'm like, yeah, totally. Throw all your stuff in my trunk. Let's go. But then I see someone who looks like he just got out of prison. I'm not picking that guy up. That's just how it is. I mean, you got to have those that common sense behind it all too.
Exactly. Yeah, you have to. And where I grew up in Russia, there's a huge community of hitchhikers. They still do it all over the world. They hitchhike on cars, buses, but also cruise ships and other anything that moves, really. Maybe not spaceships, not yet. Maybe hopefully when we get that program going as well. But there are certain things you do as a hitchhiker to help yourself to send the correct message.
Right.
For example, you dress appropriately, so you have a suit or pants and top that's very visible, that people would not mistake you for somebody who just got out of prison. And you have a backpack that you bring a lot of your gear, maybe camping, maybe just kids, like you said, right? You can bring something and give it to somebody. And so this way you have perhaps even a sign or hand gestures. It depends on where you're going, sort of local culture. But this way you're sending a message: I'm a traveler. I am hitchhiking, sometimes even for the sake of hitchhiking. Sometimes, right, I'm just getting from place to place, but I'm not just a random person doing it randomly, but there's an intention behind it. Mm-hmm. And I dress up the part and I behave the part.
Right.
And this way, people are more likely to pick you up. And also, when we did it, for example, I would not always do it alone. No, we would go in pairs.
Oh, of course.
Right?
Yeah.
Male and female. And then this way, again, kind of sending that correct message and also protecting ourselves. But it's really just, it helps both parties to understand who these people are and why they're doing it.
Right. Yeah, that's totally cool. And that's totally how, I've always done it. I mean, I've done it alone, being I'm a tall guy and I'm a guy. So I wasn't really afraid. And I've also done it with lady friends of mine as well. And I don't know. I can't say that one way is better than the other. If you get picked up more when you're alone or more when you're with someone, I think it's just an odds thing. It just depends on who happens to be driving by, who is open to bringing in guests into their car. It's kind of like that.
Yeah, and it's really okay. Whichever way you do it, it's okay. And again, there's just surprising things happen. And of course, right, when you see somebody slowing down to pick you up, you have that chance to interact with the person. You don't have to get in if you don't like them. You have that chance to say, no, thank you. Mm-hmm. Or perhaps you could just ask them a question. You don't have to say, I'm actually going somewhere. So it's really, there's a lot of control that you have. And this way, you sort of knowing who you're going with, as opposed to if you take a train, you don't know who the people are in the train. You don't, there's a lot of people, and like I used to be afraid of bombings and things that happen. And being in a train, you're always looking around, scanning around. You don't know. At least when you're hitchhiking and you pick up by somebody, you can gauge, there's somebody who's just driving for work, right? Or they're kind of sketchy and rather not go there.
Yeah.
But it's sort of strange, but you do have a choice.
Right. Yeah, geez, I've only ridden the train a couple times here because our train in Canada isn't really the greatest, and it's quite expensive. Actually, it's getting up there with like a plane ticket, and our plane tickets I think are the highest priced in the country, in like North America. And riding the train was so cool. And the first time I rode the train, it was like, and I didn't know there was a season for trains, and I rode in the off season. So I ended up having like this booth to myself, like 4 seats, like the seats that face each other. You know what I mean? Like like in a bus, the 2 seats would face each other, but there was like 4 of them, and it made this like booth, and I had all my bags in there, and I had my laptop, and I was watching movies and cartoons and things on my laptop. And it was awesome. It was great. And the second time I took the train, I thought it would be the same thing. And I showed up at the station, and there was a line out the door, and they were announcing that all the tickets had been sold out. So they turned like 20 to 30 of us away, and they told us to come back in another week or 2.
Oh, no.
And I was like, well, there's a week out of my vacation that I just lost. And then even so, after that week went by, I ended up in a little 1 seat just by myself by the window, with trying to have all my bags with me all piled up under and on top of me. So I ended up sitting for what turned out to be a 72-hour train ride, which was only a 12-hour car ride because the train stops so much and it slows down through every little town. And then it was great being cramped up in this little seat. And I was like, okay, the train used to be awesome, and now it's officially not awesome because you never know what you're going to get. But this second time, there was a guy and a girl who were like really sketchy looking, and they had to have been like high on something. They were just bugging out, and they wouldn't sit in their seat. And every once in a while, someone would come by and check your ticket and check your seat number and make sure, because they're doing like a head count to make sure everybody's still safe, everybody's still here. And this guy and this girl wouldn't sit still. They kept getting up and taking their bags and leaving and walking to another seat and moving around. And then the staff told them, like, look, you have to sit in your assigned seat and you have to stay there the whole time. And they're like, yeah, sorry, buddy. And then they would sit down for like 5 minutes, and then they would get up and leave again and move all their stuff. And so when we got to the next stop, there were like 12 police officers right there at the station, and they came in and took these 2 people off the train. So like, they don't mess around. Like, it's serious. You got to listen to what they tell you to do, or else you're out. And then like, we weren't even anywhere in the country where like there was anything. It was just kind of like, a really small town somewhere where the train happened to stop. And that's where they were taking these people away. So they weren't even in like a big town or a city or anything where they could, maybe go get a hotel for the night or whatever they needed to do.
Wow, quite an adventure for those people. Maybe they even hitchhiked home or wherever they were going.
Maybe they should have hitchhiked all the way.
Yeah.
Oh my. Geez, what? I think that was it, eh? Jewelry. Jewelry, what's that? Like, are you getting in a flow state making jewelry? Is that really a thing? I know I make art and I get in the art zone, but because I draw, I'm usually like hunched over a desk and my back starts to get sore and my eyes get strained, so it's not always like the most fun thing to do, and it's not technically relaxing by any means. So, but yeah, you do kind of get in that zone, that flowy zone. For sure, but it just doesn't last long. So tell me about making jewelry. Do you have like an Etsy and all that kind of stuff?
No, I don't have an Etsy, but it's just something that I love doing, and I use those glass beads, and you can make bracelets or necklaces or earrings or just different shapes with them. And yes, as I get older, I also feel, oh, this posture is not good, or I cannot stay in this state for too long. But that's again where that structure that comes with, right, with drinking water, exercising, and writing your most important tasks so that you offload all the things that are not necessary in this moment.
Right.
And then, your body's ready, and you aware of your body position, so you can, for example, hinge at your hips as opposed to be using your neck a lot in the wrong ways. And this way you can prolong that state of kind of being in the zone and enjoying the process. Of course, it depends what you're doing, right? And if you are you on a deadline, right? There's more pressure, so perhaps it helps some people, not others. But I started doing it when I was, I don't even know, maybe elementary school or something like that.
Yeah.
And it's a funny story, actually, why I started doing it, because it was a summer camp, and it was during the day, so I would just go there for the day and then come back home at night, and there were, kids doing things, and that time I had really bad nails, I used to chew on the nails, and then somebody noticed that, and they made a comment, and I became so self-conscious about it. I'm like, oh my God, my nails, that's horrible. And so what I did is that I got a nail polish, right, so that I would not chew them, and I started making jewelry. So this way, people would look at me, they would see, they would come, and perhaps we would interact, or I would teach them to do that. So it was opportunity to just play with somebody this way. And also, I had pretty nails to show off, and I stopped biting them, obviously. And then I'm like, wow, this is great, this is fun, jewelry making. I make something, I enjoy the process. I can be creative. I can add details to something, right? Maybe if I get a plan how to do that or from the internet, but I can still add on things, and it can be a social activity as well. So that's how I started. And then I realized, and I can, now I have all these things that I make. They can be gifts. Now, I did not connect at the time, but now that you mentioned it, I should have totally brought my jewelry and just gave it to people, right, while hitchhiking. It's something like that. Just seems so clear right now.
Yeah. Maybe next time, your next hitch, you can give them a little piece of handmade art. We had a store in my city called Beads Plus, and you would go in and it was all jewelry making stuff, and we would pick. They had like little boxes and little containers of all millions of different beads and attachments and clips and things you could buy, and we would go in and as kids and we would buy a bunch of this stuff and make little bracelets and things like that. But unfortunately the company didn't last that long. It lasted maybe like a year or two, and then it shut down, and then after it was gone, that was it. There was no more beads places to buy that kind of stuff. It just kind of faded away. So I don't know, I think maybe had it stayed around longer, that might have been something that I would have got into as one of my like artistic endeavors, like a little side one. But it is what it is. Things happen, and we go with it.
Yeah, and of course it helps when you do have opportunity, right? You can go to the store, you can look at the things, you buy something. It makes it easier for you to engage in activity, and at some point you need to start making plans, right? And a lot of the things that flow Genome Project, people saying, is that you have to have an intention and create a plan, what they call hedonic engineering, right?
Right.
And you can plan out activities that you know that you enjoy and that you know can help you get into the zone and relax this way.
Right.
And, it's all about intention, which comes back to yoga, right? A lot in yoga, it's again a lot about intention. If we want to feel a belly breathing, we need to put our intent in it. We need to switch from shallow chest breathing to deep, full belly breathing.
Yeah. Cool. Well, hey, you know what? It's been a full hour now, so I think we're just going to call it a day for now. And I would love to have you back on the show again sometime, and we could talk some more about this stuff. And thank you so much for being here and doing this. It's been great. And I don't know.
Thank you so much for having me here. Yeah, it's been fun. And I think, by talking about things that we enjoy doing, we can kind of put things together sometimes and see, it helps somebody to do this activity to accomplish that.
Right.
And why don't I try? It makes us more likely to try new things. And I think this is great. Again, the more we do positive things that bring us joy, the more likely we'll do other positive things. And hey, this way we can have amazing experiences, and other people around us will also have amazing experiences with us. So we win.
Yeah. I mean, it's cool to have these conversations because it puts it into the global consciousness. It puts it out there. People are hearing it. It makes all of this kind of stuff all gather together at a certain nexus point where, like you said, it might inspire someone else to go jump out of a plane.
Awesome. Yes. Yeah. Keep it up. Keep doing this.
Cool. So thank you, EKATERINA Aleksenko. Did I say that one right?
You did.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you again, and goodbye, everyone.
Thank you, Jason. Bye.
Bye. All I gotta say about this podcast is this. #level up. Skydiving. Wow, more than 300 jumps. I'm super impressed, and I'm speechless, and I don't even know what to say about this right now other than this is another one of the all-time favorites for sure. This is one that I hope everyone gets to listen to and really enjoy and get something out of it. There's surely wisdom to be gained. Alrighty then, that's a wrap. Another episode for the books. Until we meet again, peace, love, and light. Namaste, and all that other good noise.